I'm Melanie Johnson, along with my co-host Jen Foster. We are both 13-time best-selling authors. We've published over 2,500 books and made all of our authors #1 bestsellers. We own Elite Online Publishing. If you want to become a best-selling author, look us up at eliteonlinepublishing.com. Now, welcome to the podcast that shares secrets from top industry experts that show you how to get lasting success and results. This is the Elite Expert Insider Podcast. Welcome to our podcast again. This is Melanie Johnson, and I'm with Jen Foster, my business partner at Elite Online Publishing. Hi, Jen.
Hey, everyone. How are you doing today?
Well, it's 2021. Everything is digital. We're on this podcast. First of all, I'll remind you to subscribe to our podcast. So if you notice, like everything is gone like exponentially. Everyone's on Zoom now. We've been doing Zoom for I don't know how many years, but everybody's like, oh my gosh, everything needs to go more online, and we've been pushed online. But what if everyone is going that way and you took a step back and you did something different and you did something old school and analog? Does it stand out still? Is there a way to stand out by doing something that is unexpected and old school? So today we're going to have a surprise. We got David Wachs here with us, and he is going to tell us about something that's different, that's been around for centuries, but you can make it digital today. So I know everyone's like, what are you talking about? So let's find out. So David, thanks for coming today.
Thank you, Melanie and Jen. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, tell us a little bit, David, about how you got started as an entrepreneur, and tell us a little about your business and how you got started in this.
Yeah, so I've been an entrepreneur. I'm proud, well, not 20 years, I guess 18 years. And the first company started because I got fired from the company I was working at. I got fired without cause. That's a whole nother discussion. You could have debates if it was without cause, but it was a crazy experience in San Diego. And prior to that, I had used all my money. I was still relatively young. I was young. I was just a few years out of school. I had used all my money paying off school debt, not saving a nest egg for a rainy day fund. So I got fired from this job. I had just moved across country to have that job. 4 months later, get fired, didn't know what to do because I had no savings. So I actually moved back home to Scottsdale, Arizona, into an apartment that my dad lent me. And I started a new business. What happened was we were sitting at dinner before he helped me move out of San Diego. And he said, he was a realtor. He said, what about using barcodes or BlackBerries to provide information on houses? And this was in end of 2003. And I said, well, I don't know about barcodes and BlackBerries. He was actually quite prescient because now you use QR codes everywhere. I said, I don't know about barcodes or BlackBerries, but what about using text messages? And so I started a service where you would text in for information on a house. You'd see a little writer sign hanging from the house, and it would say, want more info on this house. This was before the iPhone and before people could just open up Zillow on their phone or whatever. You'd drive by a house, you'd want info. There was a little flyer box hanging. You'd go to get a flyer, it would be empty. So this was a solution where you text in for info on a house, you get the info on your cell phone, the realtor would get a lead, and then you could get pictures and stuff like that.
I remember those days. You had to type the with 3 buttons.
Yep, exactly. So even then I knew texting was, a short-term gap fix, but I hit it hard in the texting space. And basically, I have a computer science background. I said, okay, I'll do this. And I sat down in a room for a year, maybe 10 months, and I created House for Sale, which was this house real estate platform. And then at the same time, I knew I didn't want to be pigeonholed just in real estate. So I created a texting platform for restaurants and bars called Coupons app. But it was all in the messaging space. Mm-hmm. Well, the first client of House for Sale that really made me any money, I was dirt broke, was not a realtor, but it was Marie Claire magazine, because they came to me and they were interested in messaging and Coupons app, and they explained what they wanted to do. They wanted you to text in for information on a product in their magazine and then get back information on that product and capture the lead. I said, well, I have a solution for that. And it was House for Sale. So that's what started. Marie Claire allowed me to pull my life back together because I was living very, off unemployment, and a big night on the town for me was going to Costco for $1.50 hot dog and drink. I mean, that was like big night out. I was dirt broke. So Marie Claire allowed me to kind of get my life back together. And it grew from there. And then Coupons app didn't really go with too many restaurants and bars, but we became big with Abercrombie and Fitch and Toys R Us and Sam's Club. And fast forward 8 years, 2004 to 2012. And I sold the company to a online marketing firm that itself was also about to get bought out. So it was a two-pronged buyout. And then I worked for that new company for 2 years as what's called an earnout, where basically they just want to make sure the company, what they bought doesn't collapse the instant they buy it. So I worked for that company for 2 years. And what I found kind of in the last 2 years was, now we were in the iPhone age, and actually I was afraid iPhone would kill us, but it actually helped us because it made texting so much easier. And we kind of did apps and all that stuff too. But what I realized was Sell It was kind of part of the problem, because you had 200 emails a day that you'd receive for work, something like that. And you spend 23% of your time or 25% of your time just managing work emails. And then on top of that, you get countless text messages a day. You get junk mail, you get Slack, you get push notifications, you get Twitter, you get Facebook, all this electronic and bulk communication, and it's all just noise. And if you're like me, if you read an email now, you read it just like you don't even open it. You just read the preview and you delete it. Very few emails you even open. But what I found was, as I was still working through my earnout at the other company, I found that when I'd walk into people's offices, any handwritten notes they had received would be not only read, but kept and put on display. And they'd be on the bookshelf behind them, or standing on their desk, or at home. I'd notice handwritten notes would be magnetized to the fridge or what have you. So when I finally wrapped up Sell It and I was ready to head out the door, I started sending handwritten notes to all my employees and all my customers. And pretty quickly, my hand cramped up, or I was out of paper, or I screwed up too many notes, or I got bored and everything else. And I thought there has to be a better way. And so that, in a very long-winded way, is how I started my second company, which is Handwrytten. And what Handwrytten is it's a platform for sending authentic looking handwritten notes that are written in pen on the stationery of your choice at scale. So we make sending handwritten notes as easy as sending an email, or easier, depending on what you're planning on doing.
I love that, because how many people do you know that open 100% of their mail, especially if it looks handwritten? Everybody.
Right. Well, handwritten notes, yes. Yeah.
Handwritten. Yeah.
And that's what we do. And just to give you like an example, I muted everything, but I forgot to mute this. Just to give you an example, we have a client that's a piano tuner. So we work with clients big and small. I thought they were a law firm out of Pennsylvania, but he turned out to be a piano tuner. And he's in your home once a year. And when he's in your home, he tunes your piano, and then he follows up automatically through, and we could talk about automation, with a handwritten note. And then he's in your home a year later. And he had some technical question, and he called the company, and my account manager didn't know who else to send him to because of this technical question. So she put him through to me, and I started talking to him. I said, I've seen your notes. I thought you were a law firm, blah, blah, blah. And he told me he was a piano tuner. And then I said, how's it going? He goes, I'm in their home once a year. And then when I go in the home a year later, those handwritten notes are sitting on the piano, the little cards I send. So, when was the last time an email that you sent somebody got printed out and stuck around for a year, or a text message thank you sent was screenshotted, printed out, and stuck to the refrigerator? Like, never. But he sees these handwritten cards a year later frequently sitting on the pianos of his clients, which is just amazing brand reinforcement. And then we do this for high-end luxury goods, car dealers, realtors, and everything in between.
Well, we always say the same thing happens with a book, that you can send a flyer, you can send different things that end up in the trash, but a book sits on somebody's desk sits on their bookshelf. They never throw it away.
Yep.
They usually give it to somebody, or it's going to stay there for a length of time. The one hurdle that we had, like we were thinking, gosh, we would like to do something like that. We have a bunch of strategic partners, but what we found is we don't have their addresses. So
Yep.
we have their email address, and then we email them, please send us your address, and then they don't respond. So do you find that as, what are some of the hurdles going from the digital to really to the old school of sending these notes that you can't get that type of contact information for your list?
I mean, that's the big one. If you go to our website, handwrytten.com, and it's HANDWRY, so it's handwritten, but with a Y instead of an I. And you go to the resources section, there's something called the Outbound Marketers Playbook that we wrote. And it talks about collecting addresses and different ways to do it, because it is a problem. People aren't used to giving that out anymore. But some of our clients, whether they're realtors, they have your address, or mortgage brokers, or car dealers. I had no idea that when you buy a car, your information is just thrown around like nobody's business. Everybody and their brother, it turns out, has access to your information, which is quite frightening. But it's easy to get it there. If you're an online retailer, you obviously have their address. And then sometimes if you're a part of a loyalty program, for an in-store experience, something like that, you have access. But that's certainly a problem. One of our competitors, actually, they don't do actual handwritten notes in pen, but they do laser printed notes that kind of look like pen. They have a service that basically you send somebody an email saying, hey, I want your address. And then as soon as they get your address, it will send the note you've already queued up for them. So we might be looking at doing something like that.
I like your text messaging you were talking about before, because when you think about most companies, that if you already have the list of emails, you might have their phone number. So if you have a texting service like you were talking before, you could text them, hey, I want to send you a thank you note, what's your address? And then see how many people respond to that, and send an email too. So you could do a campaign in your email sequencing or your text sequencing to get their address. So I don't think it's like a huge hurdle. There is a way to get it. It's just a matter of how to go about getting it. And
and
doing
honestly,
it the right way.
If you tell somebody, I want to send you a thank you note, can I please have your address? Everybody is so stunned because thank you notes are such a rarity these days. I think the average person gets like 1 to 3 pieces of handwritten mail a month that they're giving it to you. I mean, after I do podcasts, I always say, hey, can I get your address so I can send you a note? And people are like, nothing good comes in the mail anymore. So it doesn't seem to be that big of a hurdle, but you have to have somebody ask for it. And I would recommend doing that if you're going to do it via email, to do it via an automated campaign that doesn't look like MailChimp. We use a service called Persist IQ. There's also Prospect.io. There's all these systems that basically send the email not through a formatted email, but just like a Gmail, where it just looks like you typed it out real quick, and you could just do a very quick subject line of, can I get your address, ? And then in the body say, I've been wanting to send you a handwritten note, but I don't have your address on file. And just keep it that short and sweet. And I think that would be probably more effective than if you have a big, beautiful Gmail or a MailChimp or ActiveCampaign or something like that looks overproduced.
Yeah. And then another question I have is the content. Even if it's like you're saying, really the most effective thing is to send thank yous to people, but so there's like the thank you letter, and then there's the like take action, like we want to let you know about something wonderful that can change your life type of letter. So do you have people there that help you with content? Is there letters that come across you're like, oh my gosh, I can't even write this for them, they wrote it so poorly? Like, do you have editors or people that help with the content?
We actually don't. We're priced as a self-service offering because people tend to be on the less expensive side these days. So we don't really offer those services. Now, if you were to send us something with a bunch of typos, our robot operators so all these notes are written by a robot. And I could get into that whole thing. It's all proprietary, but the people that work the robots have to review your notes just to make sure it's formatted to fit on the robot on the page. And if they're seeing egregious typos, they might fix them because they feel bad. But we don't guarantee that because we don't want that to be our responsibility. I mean, you can hire us as have an account manager here, but that's going to be, there's going to be $100 an hour fee, something like that. And in that case, yes, we would review your notes and make sure they're spelled and grammatically correct. You can install plugins like Grammarly. A lot of people's notes, they just go on our website, type it in, and hit send. So you can turn on Grammarly, which will basically grammar check any text box on the web, and that will fix it for you too. But to your point, most of our cards have a 500 character limit. I would recommend going well below that. It turns out 500 characters is a lot these days. Twitter tweets were only 140 characters. Text messages used to be only 160. Keep it short and sweet. You want the note to be, hey, it was great seeing you. Thanks so much. Your name, really short and sweet, because people's attention spans don't last that long anymore. So I'd recommend that. I would also recommend making it personal. So obviously include the person's name. If you're doing a bulk campaign with us and sending out 20,000 thank you notes, it's no harder to include the person's name than, I guess slightly harder. There's we'll show you how to do it with our Excel upload tools, but to include the person's name is actually quite easy. Right now we're working with car dealers, and we're doing a campaign where the service department, if you spend, if you're out of warranty and you spend a few bucks in the service department, the sales side will call you and say, hey, I noticed you spent $348.72 out of your own pocket. And that part is all written in pen, and it looks totally natural and real. So adding those little personalizations for a high-end leather goods, we don't give out client names. Nobody wants to be known as sending non-authentic handwritten notes. So for a high-end leather goods company, they would send you, it wouldn't be the model number. So people are like, let's include the item name in the note. So thank you so much for purchasing the medium, large backpack, leather print, whatever. Well, that looks stupid. So instead, just do the category and say, thank you so much for purchasing a backpack. That's much more natural. So you just kind of bringing it up one level on the product itemization sheet. The other thing is to get these out quickly, if at all possible. So, after your meeting, send a handwritten note. After the transaction occurs, send a handwritten note, because there's natural delays in that process. It takes, because the robots are slow, it takes about 1 business day from when you order it to when we are able to stick it in the mail. And then you're looking at probably 4 to 5 business days to get to your destination, because the post office is called snail mail for a reason. So, you're looking at a week, which is great if, for that natural follow-up, if you're a salesperson, as soon as you walk out of that meeting, open up our handwritten app, type in your note, hit send, and then, naturally a week later, just as they're forgetting about you, you're top of mind again. So there's some goodness to it too there. So those are the two big things. I think especially with COVID going on, people are particularly lonely, and more so than probably anybody thinks. And getting a handwritten note just to say, we're thinking about you. We want to help you in any way we can, even if it's, beyond what we typically do at, our typical job, just to make people feel remembered, wanted, cared for. It goes a long way. People say all the time, and I can give you ROI numbers on handwritten notes, as best as I can. And we have a lot of those stats, but if you ask for that, in some ways, I kind of think people are missing the point. It's a $3 item, or $3.25. We have lost our way as a culture. Everything is so transactional and nobody knows anybody anymore. Taking that few minutes out to be grateful for that order, whether it's a car or a wallet or a house or whatever else, I think it makes a huge impact. If you're an online retailer and you're selling stuff on Amazon, or selling stuff in your own Shopify store, they had the option to go to Amazon. They had the option to buy from Alibaba. They had the option to buy one of 10 trillion other things on Amazon instead of you. Be grateful for that, and it really does go a long way.
I love that you have the integration where you can integrate and automate the handwritten notes. And I think it's great, like what you were saying about the app too, because not on a business level, but on a personal level, sending a handwritten note to, your top 5 people that don't live in the same town as you, or does live in the same town as you, that you haven't talked to, or, sending a text is totally different than sending a handwritten note. And it means a lot more. So
it's a different, there's a time and a place for it all, and we don't, every time I want to send a message to one of my employees, I don't crank up the handwriting robot, I'll throw them an email. But yeah, I mean, there's a time there. I think for particular messages, sending handwritten notes work astonishingly well. I mean, for some stats, they get opened 300% more than a printed piece. The response rate we're finding is 7 times greater than a printed piece. 21 times greater than a printed piece. But when you assume that a handwritten note is about 3 times as much as a printed piece, it's still got a 7 times greater ROI. So, these things work astonishingly well. And it's not for everything. Like if you're opening a store, unless you're selling jewelry or something, I probably wouldn't say send a handwritten note to everybody in the neighborhood, because that'll get very expensive. But maybe to everybody that showed up at your grand opening, send them a follow-up handwritten note. There's ways to play it where I think it could really differentiate you.
Well, thanks for being on our show today. You gave us so much information, and for people to think of outside of, we've had to be shoved into the digital world of going back to the classic handwritten note and taking the time to do that. And it does mean a lot. My mom just recently had a stroke, and she's been getting some letters, and she's cried when she got those. It's really touched her heart versus a phone call. The handwritten letters has meant so much more. So thanks for sharing that information. I think all of us should get that pen and paper out and start writing or use your service.
Well, thank you very much. And I'm so sorry to hear about your mother. But yeah, so just very quickly, because I didn't really get into it, we have tons of integration options, whether it's Salesforce or Shopify, or all these little integrations with third platforms that most people you wouldn't expect to integrate with. There's something called Zapier, which is like the coolest tool ever, but it allows us to automate a lot of this, take it off your plate, where handwritten notes just become a part of your business without you even thinking about it. And we can show you how to do that. So if you're interested, please reach out to us.
Great. And they can find your website at handwrytten.com, and that's spelled with a Y. And we'll put that in our show notes as well.
Yep. And please, and if anybody wants to give it a shot, you can request samples on our website. We'll send you a whole sample pack free of charge, or you can just sign up to the service and use discount code podcast in all caps, PODCAST, and that'll get you $5 in credit for you to try it out yourself.
Love it. Thank you.
Thanks. Well, thanks for tuning in today. We hope you got something out of this podcast. And remember, if you're thinking of writing a book to be the credible source in your niche, look us up at eliteonlinepublishing.com. We make all our authors #1 bestsellers, and we teach you how to use your book as a marketing and advertising tool. So tune in next time, and we'll see you. Have a great day. Bye. Hey, are you looking to increase your revenue, build credibility, and elevate your brand? This podcast is brought to you by Elite Online Publishing, an innovative publishing and full spectrum marketing company. They will publish and market your book to make it a #1 bestseller. Becoming an author is the best way to market your business. So contact them at eliteonlinepublishing.com today. All of their authors become #1 bestsellers.